Okay. Hi. So today we have Dr. Sarah Little with us again. We're here for a brief conversation of some practical ways to handle everything that's going on. As we were just saying, it's not the norm or not something that should be the norm, but it's the reality we're in right now. And so with that, there's been a focus on rejuvenation at Chabad, making sure that our wellness and our mental wellness and our health is being taken care of. And to that end, Dr. Little is actually going to share some practical tips. We had part 1 last week, which you can find on the website, chabadathome.com, along with a link to the handout with really, really great practical information. And we're going to continue the conversation. And our goal is to keep these short and keep these short and practical and compact so that this way everyone who needs something can walk away with something really, really practical. So Sarah, thank you. Dr. Little, thank you so much for your time, your effort, your energy, and your dedication to this. And I'm sure there are many people who are going to appreciate it and gain from it. Go ahead.
Thank you. As you know, everybody is trying to do their part. The one good thing about this, the silver lining, the blessing, is that so far it seems to have brought out the best in people. People are sharing, people are helping, people who are physically capable are going out and making deliveries to elderly people. And at my age, I can't do that. So at least I can do this, thank God. Okay.
Yeah, well, so each of us doing our part is what part of being part of a community, and I actually, it really warms my heart to see so much good happening, right? I saw this respirator company that gave out their patent and their instructions to other companies to go and quickly make.
Oh, wow.
Do you see that? They said we're removing our patent so that any company that has these kind of engineers or equipment or machines can roll out respirators quickly.
Now, is this lung machine respirators?
Yes.
Wow, that is huge.
And then I just saw also out of Israel, a farmer saying, okay, he take all of our crops for the season, feed people in need. That's it. It's just tremendous to see the extent of the good that's possible, even in all circumstances, but especially now.
It is amazing. So I woke up this morning feeling kind of cranky. And I'm not usually a cranky person. Sometimes I go through phases, but I have been blessed with a very positive disposition. I can't say I work very hard for it most of the time. But once in a while, I wake up cranky. And this morning, I woke up cranky and negative, and I was thinking about thoughts gone viral. What happens when your thoughts are negative? You wake up. And so I thought first I'd pose this question to people to think about yourself. Is there a difference in how you feel as far as crankiness, upbeatness, positivity, negativity in the morning when you wake up, in the middle of the day, in the evening, before you go to bed? And if there is a difference, what triggers that difference? Just take a few moments and think back through your day, the last few days, or how you are in general, and whether you can pinpoint, does anything precipitate the negativity? Does anything precipitate the positivity? That would be just a place to start. For some people, you may not be able to pinpoint anything, and that's fine. Some people feel the same pretty much all the time, whether it's positive or negative, but some don't. And sometimes even if you think you don't feel different, if you really look at it closely, you might notice little blips. So look at that and just jot some notes down for yourself. It helps to take notes because we kind of forget what we think about ourselves if it doesn't fit in the mold of what we expect. So take some notes and put that down. So that's just a starter. And where I'm going with this is self-awareness. That most of us have been able to get through life going along, maybe not most, many of us have been able to get through life without being that self-aware. It's okay, you're busy, you've got lots to do, you don't have a whole lot of time to think about yourself, and you don't have a lot of time to stop and think about your feelings. So this might be a time to stop and think about them and think about, what am I feeling, and name it. Happy, sad, irritable, hurt, ashamed, angry, frustrated. So I know I'm going through everything very quickly right now, but you'll be able to play this back and pause and stop and think. And what are the names of your feelings? And you're going to ask, so what? You know, a rose by any other name is still the same. That's true. But again, if you jot it down, it helps give you a better picture of who you are and where you're at any point in time. You've probably come across the standard advice. The last session, I came up with a lot of those links to standard advice of, nurture yourself, take care of yourself, do what makes you feel good. Well, if you don't know what makes you feel good, then you can't really do that. So this is just a step. Yes? Okay. And one other
Hello?
aside I want to mention. Yeah, I'm here.
Okay,
Were you
sorry.
gonna-
I'm not sure if you were able to hear me. So you're saying step one is kind of even just notice your patterns of your thoughts, even if they're not patterns, but notice them and label them. And even if you can, jot them down, right? So like, let's
Yes,
say for me,
actually,
I noticed a pattern that if I'm using my phone or checking the news closer to bedtime, I will have a hard time falling asleep. Like straight up, very, very clear. Like not even, and I wasn't even like I was anxious or feeling anxious. It must subconsciously put layers of anxiety or nerves or too much information that I can't process to settle myself down. So that's something I noticed, but I didn't think of it till I kind of noticed throughout the day where those lulls are, where those moments are. And again, I think, right, it won't necessarily follow a pattern.
right.
A pattern, or maybe you will, maybe you won't.
Yeah, but it's just the beginning to be aware.
Okay.
And you mentioned thoughts. I'll get to that in a minute. I was first suggesting start with feelings like good, hurt, sad, happy, angry. There is no such thing as a bad feeling. Feelings are feelings. They're part of being human. They have a purpose, and this isn't the place to go into them, but you can easily look up on the internet what's the real purpose of feelings, and you'll probably get some information on that. Another time we can go there. But feelings are natural, normal. It's good to have them. They do serve a purpose, but you don't have to act on every feeling. And I'm sure you've heard that too. Just because you're angry, you don't have to act on it. Just because you're frustrated, you don't have to yell at your boss. I just lost you. Did something happen? Okay. Okay. I just lost your voice too. Oh, okay. I'll keep
I'm
going.
here. I'm just shutting my video for a second. A child needs something. That's good.
Thank you. Okay. Um, that you don't have to act on every feeling. I mean, that's advice we've heard, and it sounds very nice, and that's all. But hey, Sarah Little, how do you not act on a feeling when you're upset, when you're angry, when you have something as huge as the coronavirus and everybody around you is anxious? What do you mean control your reactions to your feelings? So first, I want to mention something that many of you may already know, but it's the relationship of thoughts to feelings. So to backtrack again, feelings are what we feel on the inside. They're an autonomic nervous system response for those of you biochemistry majors out there. And thoughts are what generates in your mind in response to some kind of stimulus. The stimulus can come from outside, something that you see or notice or is happening, whether it's in your real world or on a video, TV, or it can come from another thought inside your mind. Something triggers something that triggers something that gets a thought going. Thoughts and beliefs underlie feelings. What does that mean? And there's been a lot of research on it. A lot of you have maybe heard about CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Well, I'll let you in on a little therapist secret. Pretty much everybody practices some version of CBT. So if you're going out looking for a therapist who practices CBT, you'll have a hard time finding somebody who doesn't use these principles. Pure CBT was developed as a manualized treatment. What does that mean? That the psychologists were given a script of exactly what to say and how to do it. And then patients were measured over 6 to 12 sessions, and results were measured based on patients' scores on certain self-report instruments and therapist instruments. And that's how CBT became very popular with insurance companies, because insurance companies then had data to show that CBT leads to symptom relief in a majority or a lot of cases, about as many as medication does, according to this, in a relatively short time. So that justified short sessions of therapy being paid for by insurance companies. So I'm digressing, but back to cognitive behavioral therapy. But the concept has been around for a while, and it is very valid. It's that the thoughts that go on in your mind have a direct link to how you're feeling. And so what does that have to do with how you can control reactions to your feeling? Let's say, for example, have you ever had a situation in which you're waiting for a friend to contact you? And it's someone who promised they would get in touch. And they're kind of unreliable sometimes anyway, but they promised this time they would get in touch. And they said 1 o'clock. It's 1 o'clock, it's 1:30, it's 1:45. They still aren't in touch. How are you feeling? Check in with yourself. How would you describe that feeling?
So, it's also interesting. I see this a lot with students when they're in touch with people. They're a lot of relationships via text, or they're communicating via text. And all of a sudden, that person's not texting me back. I expected them to respond today or tomorrow, or it's uncomfortable, for sure uncomfortable.
Right. So your feelings are
And
uncomfortable.
sometimes you could personalize it and say, oh, why are they doing this to me? Or what's going on with, you personalize experience sometimes.
That's a good point. Uncomfortable, personalized, maybe angry, maybe frustrated, maybe upset with yourself for trusting and believing this person. And think about all the thoughts that would go on in your mind at that moment in response to not getting that connection with this person. Now, an hour goes by, you've given up, you're off on other things, and now imagine you get a text from another friend saying, have you heard blah, blah, was just in a car accident. They're in the hospital, they're okay, they're not dying, but they broke a couple bones. All right, check in right this second. What's your feeling? Are you still angry? Are you still frustrated?
Right, your feelings shift. Your feelings shift.
And look how quickly.
Yeah.
Like that. So it is possible that your feelings can shift. And look at what you're thinking now.
Now there's sympathy, and you're almost even sometimes could be embarrassed. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I thought that way, or I can't believe I reacted so petty, And you,
right. Yeah. And the thoughts change instantly as well. So I don't want to hear from any of you that you don't have the ability to change your thoughts or change your feelings. You do. The question is, who's going to be in control of it? Is circumstance going to be in control of that, or can you learn how to be in control of it?
It sounds doable. It does sound difficult. Meaning
Yes.
It doesn't sound simple.
Yes. Mm-hmm. It definitely.
I guess what you're saying is it's a goal and it's attainable.
Yes. It definitely is. I mean, if I were to say, oh, you too can make, if not the varsity team, at least the intercollegiate team in basketball, volleyball, something, you'd say, what? But if the coach saw you and said, just come to practice every single day and practice at home, you would
I still don't think the coach is putting me in for varsity basketball, but that's okay.
My point is that, you can get better at anything if you work at it. It's a matter of whether you work at it. And then I'll take you back to that statement that I made last time. You don't have to believe everything your mind tells you. And that example, that little simple example that everybody has been through, is a real good one. Just because your mind told you that this friend was unreliable and that they're whatever, nonsense you've been telling yourself. If you believed it, then you're going to have more work to dig out from under it. If you are in the habit of understanding that you don't have to believe everything that your mind says, you get to look at it from a different perspective. There's something called cognitive schemas. Is there a way I can write on here? Or I don't know if I can't hear you.
There's a chat on the bottom. Do you see that chat box?
Okay, and will people see that?
I'm not sure. We'll find out.
Type with everyone, sure. And you can file it. Oops, why won't it work? I have to type it down there.
Yeah,
okay.
At the bottom.
Even I can learn this. It's a matter of what I tell myself.
Yeah. I was speaking to a professor who said what an adjustment it's been learning these new programs and new systems. She said, I've been teaching this subject for 30 years and suddenly it's like a new arena, a new world.
Yes. Well, the concept of cognitive schema is one that I think is really, really important, because we don't have thoughts, ideas, and beliefs in a vacuum. We have them in an intermeshed worldview. If instead of the word cognitive schema, I said worldview. And let's say, for example, I think I mentioned this last time, back before 1492, people believed the earth was flat. And their entire way of going about life was built around the idea that the earth is flat. Once that was disproved, it took a couple hundred years probably for everybody to adopt a new cognitive schema, meaning the earth is round. So what implications does that have? What does that mean?
Would you say now our world or our social reality is undergoing that shift as well?
That's
Meaning
a really
things are
good
shifting
point.
around us constantly and we're really having to revisit a lot of fundamental perspectives. Like, did we ever imagine a school year would be shut down in the middle and that's it? No school, you got this. Would we ever think that all schools in the United States can go online? We would never think that's a possibility. And now we need to adapt to that new reality.
That's true. And I personally find something hopeful in that.
In a sense.
In the sense that, there's a perspective of gloom and doom, of, oh my God, the economy and the world and all of that. But the other perspective is the cognitive schema or the worldview, in which look at what everybody has accomplished by pitching in these last 2 months worldwide.
You're saying the resilience and the ability to adapt and ability to come up with creative solutions.
Right. And imagine taking that forward.
Yeah.
Imagine.
I would say in a microcosmic level, I noticed with our family, like the first week that everyone was home and everyone's life was suddenly just like flipped upside down. The first week was much more intense, much more kids on edge, people snipping at each other. And I noticed it's settling into a different space. Now, we did have to have some open conversations of like, what's going on here? And as a family, what do we need to work on? Mm-hmm. And come up with some creative solutions of creating more balance in like just family fun and everyone pitching in and responsibility so that there's less resentment and frustration. But I noticed that like there was a curve where we had to like transition into this new reality. But the new reality, I'm enjoying that part, I'm saying it's not so simple.
Yes. And I've heard that from a lot of people, both personally and in the media. You'll read news stories. Now, I imagine there is the other end of that as well. There are families that are not able to find a way to get along, a happy medium. They're stressed financially, they're stressed. And I would think especially kudos go out to any healthcare workers, any helpers who are going out there into the fray and being stressed on the outside and then coming home and having to find ways to not pass that stress on to their families, both in terms of actual viruses and mental and emotional stress. So anything that we can do to help people who have that kind of stress is lending a helping hand. Yeah, but so cognitive schemas are a belief system. It's not just one thought, but it's all thoughts intermeshing. And you might, in that sense, say that a religion is a cognitive schema. You know, Judaism is a cognitive schema. Hasidim is a cognitive schema. And one of the ways to really understand what your cognitive schema is, because we have, I guess the other point is that people's brains are designed to make meaning out of things. Now, hopefully some of you listening to this are majors or were majors in sciences that can feel free to add little notes that will explain some of this. But we are neurologically wired to try to make sense of things. Otherwise, man in caveman days would never have gotten past there. You have to be able to make sense of things, learn from past experience, draw conclusions, for better and worse. It's one of the features of the human brain underlying prejudice. That's a way of using it in a negative way, that if someone who looks a certain way has been dangerous to your family or your group at one point, then you start to draw conclusions that everyone who looks that way might also be dangerous. That's a negative use. But there are positive uses also in terms of what's safe to do, what is not safe to do. So we develop our cognitive schemas and beliefs from a very, very early age. A simple example is a little kid. If you've ever babysat or had young brothers or sisters, a child looks up at the sky and sees a bird and he goes, bird, bird, learning the word bird. That's about the age of 1.5, 2.5 years old, between 1 and 2 years old. And then they see a low-flying airplane and they go, bird. And you say, no, that one's an airplane. So in their cognitive schema, they're now separating that flying object into two possibilities. One is bird, one is airplane. That's how we develop cognitive schemas, and that is how our brains work. So what's that all about? It helps to know what your cognitive schemas are. How do you know what they are? They are so embedded in our minds that we filter everything that comes in based on our cognitive schema, that it's hard to tell what it is. You may have heard the word mindfulness. Mindfulness practices are a way of basically thinking about thinking, stepping as much as humanly possible outside of your preconceptions, outside of your cognitive schemas, and just watching them. This isn't the place to do a demo or a whole lot of that, but I will give you a link to somebody who does videos. It's Tara Brack, and she has a number of mindfulness videos on YouTube. And especially something that she calls radical acceptance, which is being able to accept what is going on in the moment without judging it, without giving it an emotional loading. Just, this is what's happening, good or bad. Sometimes it's very bad, sometimes it's good, but just accepting it. I will send
Would
along.
emotional loading be what your emotions are attached to that experience?
I'm sorry, can you say it again?
The emotional loading, would that be what emotions are attached to that experience?
I guess that's a term that isn't a technical term, so I would think so. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let me send that out. And so, in a nutshell, mindfulness is a way of thinking about thinking, of stepping outside of all the chatter and all the noise going on in your mind, which, as I explained, leads to the feelings. And it's kind of like sitting in a train and watching the scenery instead of reacting to everything. Oh, look, there's a tree. Oh, there's a bird. You just sit and watch and let it pass. So you can sit and watch the thoughts that go through your mind, the feelings that go through your body. You can start by taking a breath and checking in with different parts of your body, what's loose, what's tense. It's another term is metacognition, which means literally thinking about thinking. And just begin to get to know what's going on inside your mind. All of these things help you to get to the point of being able to enact. You don't have to believe everything your mind tells you. Did I spell that right? Yeah. There. You don't have to believe everything your mind tells you. And the more you pay attention to what goes on in your mind, the more you realize some of it's valuable, some of it's brilliant, some of it's great, and some of it is really garbage. And you don't have to believe all of it. Okay. Calming techniques, stretching techniques will help with being able to do mindfulness and metacognition. A couple of other quick tips are to check in to make sure you're taking care of yourself. Take some daily notes on how you're doing. Put up a poster of reminders if you have discovered that what is useful for you is, one, taking various medications, vitamins, supplements. Some people have to take medication. Some people have to take certain vitamins. Some people have vitamin deficiencies. Some people need certain exercises. Are you doing that? Are you doing it? Are you taking them correctly? Make a list, put it someplace where you will see it to remind yourself. And then, as in last week's session, okay, as in last week's session, give me a second. I have to remember what I was saying. Okay. Do it again. As in last week's session, there was a short video that I gave the link to that in the notes about how to do imaginative rehearsal. You can do imaginative rehearsal and imagine yourself getting up in the morning, taking whatever you're supposed to take, whether it's vitamins, supplements, pills, exercise, proper food, eating properly, resisting noshing, and eating the good stuff. Whatever it is that you need to do, eating healthy, being physically healthy, exercise, doing all of that. The other thing that's very important, and last but not least, is optimism. And Manya and I just talked about how one way to frame looking at all that's been happening now is the incredible fast forward that has happened across the globe of cooperation, of people who are crossing boundaries to collaborate with each other to make the world a better place. That has got to be inspirational when you think about it that way. Another resource or source of optimism are spiritual resources. Of course, Chabad, the Jewish emphasis on life and optimism. There's a very strong thread of value for life and positivity. I don't know if as a Chabadnik,
like I feel like those are themes that have taken the Jewish people throughout millennia. Like, about our challenges is not defining ourselves by those. Moving forward.
Exactly.
Progress.
Exactly. A very positive approach. Jewish history has prepared us well for times of adversity. Some would say hasn't prepared us as well for times of prosperity. Well, we can work on that. But certainly we have a lot to fall back on in terms of historical hope that we can get through this. And at my age, simply being older helps. I would not have been able to say all this 40 years ago. But having lived through as much as I have, and I certainly haven't lived through
So is it
traumas
is it
myself.
the life experiences are also our greatest teacher in a sense, and accepting and
Well,
acknowledging that?
your own and your family's. And yes, there, I'm sure, were negative family experiences and perhaps your own life experiences, but you're still here to look at that and talk about that. And so were the family members who shared it with you. So there is something in the sense of this too shall pass that will help you get through this. Last but not least, I look forward to seeing everybody next week. And I would invite you as well to Torah and Tea with Manya on Wednesdays at 12:30. Same channel, I believe. And next week
Link for
is,
everything. This is the link for everything. So next week, Torah and Tea and this conversation's put on pause.
that's right, I was just going to say it's Pesach already. So speaking of historical memories and inspirations, that this too shall pass, and we will get through this plague. And you might be thinking about what to add to your Seder plate in future times to commemorate the coronavirus plague. And
Sarah, thank you so much. You give us a lot of practical thoughts and really like stuff that we can take away. And I'm going to load this onto the website as well. And I really appreciate you constantly giving. Thank you for being you and for giving.
Thank you. And have a wonderful Pesach to you and your
Pesach.
family.
It should be a good, holy, clean, healthy Pesach for everyone.
Yes.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.